Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rolling Over 40 podcast. My guest today is somebody that, although I don't train with this guy, I've actually known him longer than any of my other guests so far because our kids have been attending the same elementary school since kindergarten, and kindergarten, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and but our kids who were kindergartners at the same time are now sixth graders at different schools. But yeah, we've known each other since then. We've always kind of sort of crossed paths, and we didn't end up like really meeting. And the first time we even hung out was last summer at the park, and that was the first time I got a chance to talk to you and get to know you. And so my guest today is also the first guest of ours that doesn't train at One Jiu Jitsu. As you can see, this guy is very proud to represent the Jiu Jitsu Club that he trains at, known as Steez, which is down the street from our gym of One Jiu Jitsu in Tustin. And so my guest today is also a purple belt, the highest belt rank so far of any guest. So that's a lot of pressure, just saying. And he is tall. He's handsome, and this dude is freaking ripped. Welcome to the podcast, Jeremy Lee. I think that's your last name, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I appreciate
I took it from the email. So, yeah, man, welcome. It's great to have you here, man. And one of the first things I wanted to ask you about and get into, just speaking of Steez, I just kind of want to know what it's like because a lot of our listeners, a lot of the people I train with, we don't know much of anything. We know Steez is down the street from us. We see it all the time. I drive by it on the way to One Jiu Jitsu every day and on the way back every day. And what are things like at Steez? I know, we all know it must be hard being down the street from, what most people in Southern California would recognize as the number one jiu-jitsu gym in Southern California and possibly, nationwide. And I'm talking, of course, about One Jiu-Jitsu in Tustin. It must be difficult being down the street from such a dominant gym, and it just must be challenging for you guys. And I don't know what it's like, but maybe first you could talk about how difficult that is, just being so in such close proximity to us, and how I don't know how you guys deal with that. It must be hard because you chose that location, and you guys must have known, okay, this is it's going to be tough. We got like a giant next to us. We got the number one gym in SoCal next to us. So what are we going to do about that? But no, I'm just kidding, man. I'm sure. No, in all honesty, though, me and most of the people that I train with, we feel like our gym is the best gym ever, and we have a lot of love for our gym. But at the same time, like when I met you last summer, I think that's pretty much how you feel about your gym too. And most people who you train with probably feel the same way. And I think that's freaking awesome. And I think that's great. And, so yeah, tell us a little bit about Steez Jiu Jitsu Club, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I absolutely agree. Everybody should love the gym that they go to. If you don't, you're at the wrong gym. And
Right.
we are so lucky to be here in Southern California, where it's really a mecca of jiu-jitsu. You have so many options. You've got huge schools, and really you hear the term like McDojo. I just feel like there's not actually a lot of that here in SoCal because you have so many options. So the competition is high. But yeah, absolutely. Steez Jiu Jitsu. I think our gym just hit the 5-year anniversary. So shout out to Steez Jiu Jitsu for hitting 5 years. It was really kind of a dream in the making for Professor Jimmy. During the pandemic, he was kind of walking around looking for a space to start a jiu-jitsu gym. And he just ran into a very small room. And I call it a room, but it was really, I think it was intended as a storage closet right next to the Path Bike Shop. So for those of you who live in SoCal and ride mountain bikes, the world famous Path Bike Shop, it's got a lot of boutique bikes. So right next door to it.
I know it. I do know it. Yeah.
Yeah, right next to their original location, there was this tiny little storage room. I want to say it was 14 feet by 14 feet. And Jimmy went there and, negotiated a lease and then put wall-to-wall mats and then just started a gym there and started off real small. And I wasn't even there at that time. I actually started at a different gym. But it was a little dream
Oh,
of his.
I didn't know that. I'm going to be
Yeah.
asking about that. Okay, cool. Keep going.
Yes. Yeah. So he built up that gym, and it kind of blew up from there. And then eventually, I want to say 2 years ago, we moved to the new location, which was the old Dawn Cyclery in Tustin, which is
Yep.
significantly larger. So we got two mat spaces. And the idea, and of course, I'm kind of telling it how I hear it from him because it's his vision, is really it's a clubhouse. I mean, it's a boys club, boys and girls club. Like
Yeah.
there's foosball table in there. There's video games, couches. So kids are hanging out in there while people
Right.
are training and all that stuff. So it's got a little bit of everything. Super family friendly, very community centric, and it's awesome. You got a little bit of everything. A lot of law enforcement that train there, Tustin, Irvine, Garden Grove, Huntington Beach, etc. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember from when we met at the park that day and we were talking, and I'll never forget when you told me there's a foosball table in your gym. And I think that's awesome. And, like I said, I literally do drive by it every single day on the way to One Jiu-Jitsu. And yeah, I remember I actually have been to Steez before when they were in that little shop. And I didn't know that's when they just opened, but I took my kids there for a trial class. Yeah, like I said, this was during COVID. I guess it was right around the time he opened. So I do remember that little tiny place. And then I remember when I was driving around one day, I see the bike shop. All of a sudden, the bike shop's not there, and Steez Jiu Jitsu is there. So I was thinking, oh, good for them. That place looks. I mean, because I remember that place was tiny. So to be able to expand and to be able to stay so close to the old place must be nice too.
Yeah.
Because like honestly, One Jiu-Jitsu talks about expanding all the time. And if it would be tough for me if they moved very far from where they are right now, because and a lot of us, I think it's like I like that location, and it's close to me. It's convenient, just like Steez is for you. It's like I wouldn't want them to move very far. So it must be nice for all all the clients and customers that it wasn't a big move. That it was just like across the street, pretty much. So you guys didn't have to make a big change or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that distance is key because for me, and I'm sure yourself as well, we've got young families, that we got other responsibilities, and so
Yep.
making time to go train is not easy. And so if it's something that's very accessible, a couple minutes away, makes it just that much easier because we got a lot of great gyms, but I just don't have the time to commute, 20,
Yep.
30 plus minutes all the time to go train.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the guys I train with, when I talk to them, some of them do drive that far to train at our gym, and I'm just like, my gosh, that has got to be hard, So you're local to your gym, but I didn't know that you trained at another gym before Steez. And where was that gym, and how long did you train there?
I started off at Carlson Gracie in Irvine.
Okay.
I didn't train there for that long, mainly because the pandemic happened. So I trained there for only about a little, maybe half a year
Okay.
before kind of everything started shutting down. And my older daughter, she started there before me. So she had actually
Okay.
been training for probably a year and a half before the pandemic started shutting everything down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, was there a reason that you didn't go back to that one after things started opening up again, and you went to Steez instead?
So I did go back actually. So as things started opening up, I did go back. But the gym had changed a lot. There was kind of a different crew that was there, and it was still good. It was still still a good gym. But then had a couple injuries. Not any fault of anybody. This is part of the game, right?
Yep.
And then one of my friends, as I was kind of recovering from injury that I couldn't train at the time, he's like, "Hey, you should come check out my gym." And that was when I was like, "Oh, I'll come out check out Steez," and I really liked the family friendly environment. And I understand a lot of gyms are very family friendly, but there's something about Steez that is very close knit and close to the community. It's pretty awesome.
You also described it as, I believe you said, mom and pop. I think that's what you said when we were hanging out last summer. That you said it's very mom and pop, and I think that's a great vibe for a jiu-jitsu. You also mentioned the word club. You said that was a deliberate choice of a word in the word club to just kind of create that, just to kind of convey that it's that kind of an atmosphere, right? Wasn't there something about that word being right?
Yeah, that's right. So Jimmy called it Steez Jiu Jitsu Club. And the idea is really, it's like a clubhouse. So I think, anyways, from talking with him, that his goal was really to create a place where he can have his friends train with him until we're really, really old.
Until
Yeah.
and we're getting closer every day, aren't we?
My
Right.
body's feeling it for sure.
And how old are you?
I am 41, going to be 42 in a few months here.
Okay. So I'm exactly 5 years older than you then. I'm going to be 46. No, 4 years older than you. I'll be 46 in a month. So,
All right.
yeah, definitely feeling it. But I mean, having just started, it's like I really want to be able to do this for a long time. So it's really cool to hear that that was Jimmy's goal, that for him and his friends to be able to keep doing this into their old age, which is what I think a lot of us really want out of this sport, especially those of us who have started, as adults and grown-ups, which is kind of the theme of the Rolling Over 40 podcast here. So you were how old when you very first started, before the pandemic? So you were like 35?
I want to say it's probably 36 or 37. I'd probably have to check, but somewhere around that age.
And last summer, you were a blue belt. So honestly, before I met with you today, I was thinking to myself, he's either a high stripe blue or he's made it to purple now. So when did you get the purple belt?
So I got my purple belt at the beginning of December, so I'm still a very new purple belt.
Okay.
Absolutely in the imposter syndrome phase. Don't feel like
I
a
was
purple
going to
belt.
ask about
Yeah,
that, man. That's crazy.
absolutely. Yeah. So I felt like that when I got my blue, but definitely not to this extent. I felt like I was finally getting a good stride in blue.
Okay.
And then I got promoted. I was like, oh no. Yeah.
Oh, no is right. Yeah. Honestly, I got my first stripe like a couple months ago, and I knew it was
Congrats.
coming. Thank you. Thank you. It was awesome. And I knew it was coming, but it's like, oh boy. There was something about being a white belt with no stripe because there's zero expectation on myself or that anybody else has on me. So
Yeah.
it's crazy when I talk to higher belts like you, and it's like, how is it possible that you're a freaking purple belt and you still have imposter syndrome? But you must feel, there must be also a part of you that's like, I can see my progress. Like I can tell that I'm definitely significantly better than I was, right?
Yeah, I can definitely see progress, but progress is hard to see, right? Because all your
Sure.
partners are also leveling up at the same
Yeah.
time at different
Yeah,
rates,
yeah.
of
You're
course.
all like, yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell everybody, I still think white belt's the best belt.
Wow.
Everything is brand new. Everything's
Okay.
exciting. There's
Yeah.
no expectations. Like everybody
Okay.
expects a white belt not to know anything and not be very good. But once you start to get into the color belts, there's expectations, right? So there's a lot of pressure probably, that we put on ourselves at each
Yeah.
of the belts.
Right.
But white belts like no pressure.
Okay. So I guess, would you recommend for if that's the case, then maybe I should just quit before I get to blue, right? Just the best days are behind me once I get to blue. Yeah, man. It's like I know that day's coming, but what I was saying on one of my first episodes was like, okay, sure, I'm pretty sure I will be wearing a blue belt. I will be promoted to blue belt or whatever color belt. Substitute whatever color you want for my statement that I'm about to say. It's like I'm sure there'll come a day when I'm wearing that belt, but will I really have earned that damn belt? Will I really deserve that damn belt? Because it's like the difference between me and in the average blue belt right now literally feels like night and day. Like, and you're telling me I'm going to get there because I can't even tell the difference when I roll with a blue belt versus purple, brown, black. I can't tell the difference. They all crush me either way. It's not like I'm giving that blue belt a run for his money and that purple belt kind of except the black belt. No, that's just one stripe white. All those blue and up feel like, they might as well all be black belts to me. So, but yeah, it's like just the fact that you can be a purple belt and still feel the imposter syndrome is, it's just, I think that's the very interesting thing about this sport.
Yeah, hopefully it won't last that way for too long, right? I've
Yeah.
only been a purple belt for a few months here, so maybe that's why. But yeah, I would say enjoy every belt. And in terms of feeling like you're a real blue belt or feeling like I'm a real purple belt, I think at the end of the day, it's really trusting our coaches because they make that decision on
Right.
whether or not you're ready for that next step. And I think the fact that most schools, as far as I know, especially in our area, are not attendance-based promotions. So that tells me that somebody's watching you, somebody's watching me,
Right.
watching
Well,
our
that's what I was going to
progress.
ask you.
Yeah,
Do you guys have to check in at all?
we do, but it's definitely not attendance-based
Okay.
because, like for example, so like I mentioned, my older daughter, she's been training since 2019, right? She's still a white belt. So, and she trains. I mean, she doesn't compete. That probably doesn't help her progress.
Okay.
At least not in the same at the same rate as some of the competitors.
Right.
There's a lot of competitors that are especially the kids
Yeah.
program at our gym. But I mean, my kids train regularly. Like during the soccer season right now, they train 2 to 3 days a week, and then in between soccer seasons, they go about 4 times a week.
Wow, your kids are busier than my kids. But I feel like that's like the average busyness level of most parents with kids our age. But that's interesting, yeah, because ours is to a certain extent attendance based, not entirely, and not,
Sure.
I think it's they really get on us lately about checking in because honestly, the attendance, the number of students, especially in the kid classes, has just gone through the roof in the last year or two. So they need some way of keeping track of things. And it's similar for the adult classes as well. So I know there's attendance is a component of the promotions. It's not all. And that's one thing that I don't know that I'll ever completely understand. I probably will better when I'm a higher belt, but I don't really understand like even you said, okay, it's like the coaches have decided or not decided. Maybe they've seen in you that you're a purple belt now, but you personally, you feel imposter syndrome. You don't necessarily see that in yourself. So it's like, I would love to almost like, I mean, get inside of a coach's head and it's like, what, like if I ever get a blue belt, it's like, what are you seeing in me that I don't see in myself that made you want to give me this belt that I feel like that feel like I haven't really earned. But I just find the promotion thing very, very, very interesting because it's like, from gym to gym, it can be slightly different criteria. And if you go to a competition as a blue belt, you're going against blue belts from gyms that could be anywhere. And I feel like there's
Yeah.
just there's a lot of wiggle room as to how do you define what a blue belt is.
Yeah.
Right? There's no specific like checklist that a gym has to go through, is there, for like to say this person's a
No.
blue belt or a purple belt? So that's why I
Yeah.
find that interesting and I don't really get it yet.
Not that I'm aware of, but I have heard that there's some gyms that have started to try to create a list of criteria that they feel qualifies for each of the belt levels. I know like AOJ, for example, I want to say a few months ago, they had posted some of like the main things or techniques that they expect for like a kid's gray white to know, or solid gray or gray black, like those kinds of things. I mean, generally speaking, I feel like everybody kind of says, obviously white belt is beginner, focus on escapes and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then at blue, you should kind of have a better understanding of the rules of the game. And
Okay.
then at purple, you start to have your own game and start to chain attacks together. And then brown is fine tuning, and then black is starting over. Like so.
Starting over. Oh my God, don't say that. What would
Yeah.
you say that since you've gone from white to blue and blue to purple now? I mean, what is that how you would kind of sum it up? The difference between like white, blue, and purple? Would you kind of understand it that way in your own game?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, for me, to me, blue is really an advanced beginner. So you understand the rules, you kind of have an idea of what works and what doesn't work, but you
Okay.
still don't really have the whole picture. And then it's really obvious when you go against somebody who really knows what they're doing, and then you miss all these little details, right?
Yeah.
And then as purple, I'm trying to find ways to chain attacks and techniques together.
Okay.
And then also I feel like at purple, it's when you start to kind of choose your own destiny, meaning like it's time for a purple belt to start to kind of like figure out and learn things that kind of fit your style or body type, etc. So you're
Okay.
not just following just your coach's curriculum only.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's obviously tons and tons of material out there with the internet and YouTube and all this stuff. But I find that a lot of that stuff I use for entertainment value only, because there's a lot of trash out there too. So if
Yeah.
I see something that's interesting, I may, note it down, and then I'll go back to my coach and ask about it. And then, because you get that live feedback in person, which I think is significantly more valuable than just watching some video of some dude on YouTube. You have no idea,
Yeah.
if they really know
Yeah.
what they're doing. So,
This is actually a common theme of most of my episodes so far is I ask people, do you use outside resources to learn stuff? Because, and I'm very curious about your perspective as a purple belt, which you already kind of gave, but I guess, one thing I'm kind of confused about, because our instructors, as I think a lot of good instructors do, they emphasize the fundamentals. It's like, there's no need to be flashy. You need these fundamentals. And I remember one of our professors one time was like sitting down and talking to us. He's like, guys, the reason why we learn fundamentals is not because we want you to learn fundamentals. It's because they work. Fundamentals work. Okay. And I will never forget when he said that. But, part of me can't help when I get submitted by somebody and then they tell me that, oh, I learned how to do this, who knows, this Johnson on, and it's like, okay, you're getting wins though. It's got to feel nice to get a win once in a while because I get very few wins as a freaking one-stripe white belt, even against other one-stripe white belts. It's rare. So it's like, there's a part of me that's like, it'd be nice to like, maybe if I could learn some sort of cheat code and get a win now and then. You know what I mean? But I guess a higher belt like you would probably say, yeah, but you're kind of, or one blue belt friend of mine that I had on the podcast before, Coy, he said, yeah, but you're learning bad, like you're gonna develop like holes in your game because of that, and it would be better not to worry about that and to just focus on the fundamentals. Would you agree with that?
absolutely. And that's kind of to my comment earlier about black belts supposedly starting all over, right?
Right.
It's not necessarily starting over. And when you say focusing on fundamentals, it doesn't necessarily mean focus on basic techniques.
Sure.
Because fundamentals are ideas and strategies as well, right?
Yeah.
So like knee and elbow connection, keeping both arms in or both arms out, like those kinds of things aren't really techniques, but they're basic ideas that can apply in a lot of different positions. So as you add more techniques to your tool belt, regardless of whether or not it's something you knew before or not, a lot of those original fundamental ideas still apply. And that's how I try to operate, because I feel like this game is endless, and that's probably why it's so attractive to people. There's just so much stuff you can learn, and it's never ending. So you're never going to learn all the techniques out there. There's going to be like some nuance that makes some technique be named something differently also.
Right.
But if you focus on some of those fundamental ideas, I think it'll make us all better off in terms of, like how good you are in like to defend against something that you don't know. Right. So if I'm in a position I don't know, I still know I got to keep my elbows tight. I got to avoid an underhook, or if they're gonna grab my head, I need to like break a grip, or not let them cross face me. Like those ideas, even if I don't know what they're doing, I'm gonna try to get away from that.
Yeah. So I'm really curious as a purple belt, like what. Like when you were, let's say, a starting white belt and you had some parts of your game, you were like, I need to work on these parts of my game. I'm going to do this and that and whatnot. Like, do you ever, I'm sure as a purple belt, you reflect on that and you probably chuckle to yourself, like, I used to think this or I used to think that. But just like, what is your, in terms of like, here's what I need to do to improve my game. Like, how would you say, what you do and how you approach that question is different when you were a white versus a blue versus now as a purple. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, how do you try to improve your game now versus how you did as a white belt? I guess that would be a simpler way to ask that question.
Yeah, that's a good question. As a white belt and starting off, mid late 30s, I probably had a different mindset than others, and I'm sure that you maybe have a similar approach as well. And that was, I want to learn jiu-jitsu and I want to get decent at it and do it for as long as I can, because it's a great physical activity and all that good stuff. But also, we're not getting any younger. We're not getting faster. We're not getting more explosive. So I try to focus my game on knowing that that's going to come sooner than, say, for an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old. Right. So I don't have a very explosive game. And I've always kind of approached that way as a white belt.
Okay.
And then I also tried to focus as a white belt, and I probably need to do this more again as even now. on weaknesses.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't want to do that because everybody's got an
Yeah.
ego. You want to
Sure,
win.
sure, sure.
And then
Yes.
in the beginning, everybody's bad on their back, right? So
Yeah.
everyone's trying to be on top and
Yeah.
smash, right?
Yeah.
But I want to say for a good, I don't know, half a year, I was like, I'm getting smashed all the time. I'm just gonna ask to start from bottom mount or bottom side control, and then I'm gonna
All
have
right.
to try to escape, and then we'll just continue the roll from there. So I did that for a long time,
Yep.
and it definitely improved. I wouldn't say I'm the
Right.
best at it, but I felt like I improved a lot faster than if I didn't do that.
And sorry, this is when you were a white belt, right? When
This
you
was when I was a
decided.
white belt.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Okay. And so that part of your game improved a lot. And what would you say as a purple belt then now? What are like the strongest parts of your game? Like what are your go-to submissions, your go-to sweeps? Like what, do you prefer side control to mount? Things like that. Are you like a master armbar guy? Like, what would you say?
I wouldn't say I'm a master at anything, but I do have long legs, so naturally I
Yes.
gravitate towards triangle chokes.
Okay.
But at my gym, everybody knows you, everybody knows me,
Yes.
so
Yeah,
they
right.
know your game, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm okay at triangle chokes, but I mean people see it coming, so
Okay.
now I have to kind of work around that a lot more. But to your question about sweeps, I mean obviously it depends on the position.
Okay.
I really like pendulum sweeps,
Okay.
just because it is so demoralizing. You can
So a pendulum sweep would be a white belt here. Pendulum sweep would be like a bicep sweep, for example. Is that a type of
so
pendulum sweep?
so let's say that I have my partner in closed guard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I have to trap one arm one way or another. Usually like to bring it across my center and grab around their back and usually their lat or armpit, and then you scoop under their leg, and then
yeah.
you use your leg as a pendulum and sweep them over to that side that you've blocked. The reason why I like that sweep so much is because like you just feel helpless when you're being swept that way,
Okay.
because you can be swept super slow. You're just trapped, and you're just like, oh god, this is embarrassing.
So you like making people feel helpless. Well, I mean, that's the name of the game, kind of, is jujitsu, right? Kind of imposing your will on somebody else, kind of, I guess. So that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but like I said, I have long legs, so I play a lot of De La Riva. Been doing a lot
Okay.
of reverse De La Riva recently. So
Okay.
I like sweeps from De La Riva. I like
Okay.
tripod sweep, sickle sweep.
Oh, sickles. I don't know the sickle sweep. I don't think I even know anyway, white belt here. The tripod sweep either, but I'm learning. So what part of your game are you trying to work on right now?
So right now working on so right now we're currently learning reverse De La Riva, but I'm trying to do more of my weak side because everybody's got a strong
Yeah.
side, weak side.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm trying to get more reps in on my weak side on most positions.
Okay.
And then also I've been trying to do a little bit more stand up. So
Okay,
we
sure.
start standing up at our gym, and even though my stand up's not probably as good as other people, I'll try to do
Yeah.
a takedown a few times,
Okay.
and then if I'm not having success, then eventually I'll pull guard because I don't want to spend the next 5 minutes standing.
Okay.
Like,
Sure. That's interesting
yeah.
that I feel the same way about takedowns and stand up. I mean, because we often start sitting down. And it's kind of a little habit you can get into. It's like, okay, let's just start sitting down. And you can just kind of become comfortable, almost too comfortable with that. So, the instructors will force us, like they did last week a few times, to, hey, it's takedown day. We're doing King of the Hill takedowns right here, right now. But so you said this week you guys are working on like reverse De La Riva over there. So like, yeah, I was going to ask like, how's the, like, I don't know how things work at other gyms. So like at our gym, it would be, we kind of have a weekly / broadly, maybe a few weekly theme, it's like on Monday or this week, we're going to, practice taking the back and different submissions from the back, and you kind of build on it through the week. And the next week's lessons will kind of build off of the previous week's lessons and whatnot. And then, and like our, the structure is just like we do the average class, you do like I don't know, 15 minutes of warm-ups, and then we'll do like 30 or so minutes of drills, and then it's just live rolls for like the last 20 or 30 minutes. So is it similar over at Steez?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the
Okay.
same. I think that's pretty standard at most gyms.
Okay.
Um, Similar to you, you know, Jimmy puts together a curriculum that he's got planned months in advance. And I
Wow.
was kind of chatting with him, and at one point he had planned like a year ahead.
Okay.
But he found that he had to make a lot of adjustments along the way because
Okay.
the group is either not necessarily getting concepts or whatnot, so he has to slow things down. So
Okay.
instead, I think he's shortened that duration, so it's not a year out anymore, but it's many months ahead, so he can like tell you, oh, you know, in the next couple months, this is what we're going to be learning. But typically,
Wow.
we'll
Okay.
stay within a world and we'll learn, you know, like 2 or 3 techniques, and we'll just drill that for the week, one full week.
Okay. What do you mean by a world? Like reverse De La Hiva is the world, or
So right now, like the world is reverse De La Hiva.
okay.
So then we'll work on positions, switching from reverse De La Hiva to De La Hiva, reverse
Okay.
De La Hiva to Kiss of the Dragon, reverse De La Hiva to overhead sweeps, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay.
And then he'll kind of build on that week over week. So
Sure.
in previous months we had like middle distance passing or close distance
Middle
passing.
distance passing. Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll learn, you know, different guard passes from those various positions. But like that month will be like middle distance passing.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds I think pretty similar. Not I don't often talk to the instructors about, hey, what's the plan for the month or whatever. I just, walk in and whatever we're doing, we're doing. But yeah, I know that they do have things planned out. I don't know how far in advance, but yeah, it sounds like a pretty similar setup. So, what was I going to ask? Yeah, a little more about Steez, man. So, like, for instance, we have what's called the intro class at our gym. Whereas if you're a beginner, then for the first, I don't know, 5, 10 times you come in, you have to learn these, like, you are required to learn this little curriculum, which is like these little choreographed moves. So, you'll do the warm up with everybody, you'll do the drills sometimes with everybody, or maybe not. And then, for the time, you don't roll for, like, I don't know, the first 5 or 6 or whatever times, like live roll. And then they take you and they make you, or they have you learn these little choreographed drills, right? So you get with a partner and you get with closed guard, and then it goes from, you learn the cross collar choke from the bottom mount, and then, bottom closed guard. So then you do the kimura, then you reset, and then you try the kimura again, and the person, dodges the kimura, and then you do the hip bump sweep, and then you go to cross collar choke. And there's like a whole system there, right? And you kind of have to, you don't have to have it perfectly memorized, but you want to have it. They basically the instructors decide if you've learned it well enough to kind of, let you into the Shark Tank. And that's kind of how, that's how it is if you're a beginner at our gym. And so I was curious, what is it like at Steez? Like if somebody has been driving by Steez every day for months and then decides to walk in there and sign up for a beginner class, what's the experience like?
Yeah, so I really like that actually because I was just talking to some friends the other day, and something very interesting about jiu-jitsu is no matter where you go, usually there's no like you're going to start from chapter 1, right? You get
Right.
thrown into
Yes.
curriculum wherever everybody else is learning.
Yeah.
So I do like that a lot of schools are starting to have like these beginners, basics, fundamentals classes.
Sure.
And so yeah, Steez has that also. So
Okay.
on, let's see, I think Mondays and Wednesdays, there's a fundamentals class which is intended for beginners.
Okay.
I go to that one also actually.
Okay.
And so that one has more basic techniques. And then it doesn't have rolling, it has specific training. So like if you're learning how to escape mount, then
Okay.
you'll start from bottom mount, and then your round will just be to escape, and your partner will be, their task is to stay on top. And they
Okay,
won't try
so
to
they're-
submit, for example. So they keep it real
Right.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like positional.
Yeah,
Because I mean,
positional
we
smart.
we do that a lot, but it's it's integrated as part of the rest of the class. And sometimes instead of doing live rolling at the end of class, we'll do that kind of thing instead. But so you're saying you guys at Steez, there's a class, like a specific class you can go to. This one you're talking about where there's no live rolling, period, and it's every single class is going to be either start from side control or start from this, and then the drill is just to either escape or pass and then reset, right? For the
Yeah.
whole and so there won't be any complete live rolling or submissions for a class like that, huh?
Not in that class so far. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. That is really cool that
And
that
I
they have
actually,
one like that.
I'm probably not like most people, because most people love the sparring. Like they're like, okay, let's get through class and then I want to start rolling, right?
Yeah, right.
But I've never been the type to like love rolling as much as other people. I do enjoy
Really,
it,
I'm surprised. You're a purple belt. You've been doing this a long time. That's surprising to hear.
I mean, I do enjoy it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about your gym, but on average, I would say I'm smaller than the average adult there also. So like
Okay.
getting
You're tall
smashed for a
though.
long
You're like
time.
6'1" or something.
I'm 6 feet, but I'm only
Okay.
like I just weighed myself the other day. Was it 167?
Oh yeah, I knew you were. I knew you were skinny. Okay.
Yeah,
6', 167. All right, all right.
yeah.
Like I'm like 5'9.5", 155. So, all right, all right. Yeah. I mean, but you're tall. But I feel like honestly, when I look at you, I feel like you've got. Most people would look at you and say you have the ideal body for jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Even though there's not
I've
really
heard
any.
that. I don't know.
Right, right, right. I mean, a lot of people would say there's the argument out there that there is no such thing, that we
Yeah.
all have advantages and disadvantages, but it seems like long limbs and tall, at least tall-ish, is pretty a lot of people would say, yeah, that's pretty good body type for jiu-jitsu.
I have heard that. I have heard that.
I bet you have. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, because you were saying, I'm surprised to hear you say that so but I mean, it's not that you don't like live rolling, but you prefer like the positional stuff a little more.
Well, so definitely as a white, and maybe even part of the way into blue,
Okay.
I would highly recommend spending more time doing positional sparring or
Okay.
specific training
Okay.
or ecological. Maybe it's a bad word nowadays, but I would recommend that mainly
Okay.
because it forces you to focus on a specific set of tasks.
Okay.
And especially as a white belt or even maybe a newer blue belt, like at that time you just don't know enough, and you can go down
Right.
too many different rabbit holes where you're like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do here.
Sure.
And get
sure.
distracted,
Sure.
right? So
Right.
focusing on some of those main ideas of how do I
Yeah.
escape mount, how do I escape bottom half guard, how do I
Right.
sweep from this position,
Right. Right.
will
Right.
kind of let you focus on those things. And I
Sure.
found that to be a lot more fun, at least
Yeah.
much earlier on.
Right. No, I'd be lying
More
if I
effective.
said what was that?
I found it to be more effective too in terms of my growth at that
More
time.
effective. Right. Right. No, I'd be lying if I said when because we do that a lot, but it's like, we don't have a designated class for it, but all the time we will, the instructor will be like, okay, get in groups of 3, sweep or pass drill for the next, 15 minutes or something like that. And, or okay, find a partner, and all we're going to do is you get in, one of you take the back of the other. And then if you're taking the back, you're going to try to finish the submission. If you're the other guy, you're going to try to get out of the back control and then reset,
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it when we do stuff like that, because it also kind of, for me as a white belt, it kind of takes a little bit of like the hesitation and almost the fear I have
Right.
of a completely live roll when we're both. Yeah, I don't even love starting standing up very much in general, because I kind of like what we talked about earlier. Like I'm not very good at takedowns, and it's like, can we just get to where you're in my half guard or something like that, and we just go from there,
Yeah. There's
yeah,
the injury.
so
there's
that's
the
interesting.
injury concern too. I think that's probably why I didn't
Yes,
focus as
for
much
sure.
on takedowns, and being older. Like
Yep.
I don't want to get slammed on my back or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's part of the game. So you got to still work on some stand up, and you can kind of focus on things that are maybe lower risk.
Yeah, for sure. And no, it's hey, great segue. I was going to ask about injuries, because do I remember correctly that you broke a toe last time I talked to you, right? And it was in your
Yeah.
gi during a warm up or something, right?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, if this episode is about injuries, then you're not gonna have enough time.
Oh wow, really? Okay, so there was the
Yeah.
toe. What's been your worst injury then?
I've had a lot of injuries that have taken me off the mat for weeks at a time. I wouldn't say anything.
Okay.
I don't have anything that's like, oh well, I had to have knee surgery and I was out for months. Nothing like that.
Okay.
But that
Knock
toe
on
injury
wood.
itself, yeah, knock on wood. That toe injury was an absolute fluke. It was
Yeah.
flow rolling for warm ups.
Yeah.
My partner went for a guard pull, so I just went with it. And as I was going down into his guard, I
Yeah.
just kicked his shin, and it just
Ouch.
the
Okay.
wrong angle. And I looked
Yeah.
down, and then my toe was like sideways, and I was like, oh
Okay.
no. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't even rolling. Like it was,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't have a good
I'm,
story for it.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's a funny story though, because I mean, honestly, last week I almost injured my toe putting on my gi before class. It's like it just like it
Got
got my
caught.
toe got caught, and as I'm pulling, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And if I had just yanked on my pant leg, I might have snapped a toe or something. It's like
Yeah.
it's all the friction of the gi, So my worst was since I saw you, I injured my rib, the classic. I'm sure you're familiar with rib injuries. Maybe I don't know
I've
if
done
you've
that
had them or
twice.
not, but
Yeah, I've
oh,
done
you
that
have.
twice.
You've done the rib thing. Okay, so
So one
how'd
time,
it go?
the first time I injured my rib, I actually fractured it. So I actually went to urgent care and everything because I was
Okay,
having a hard time breathing and couldn't even carry
sure,
like a
sure.
gallon of milk in the hand.
Oh yeah,
Um, and that was just from a, a nasty knee on belly. Like
okay,
my partner had knee on belly, but the belly or the knee was like higher up onto my rib, and there was
okay,
a lot of like gi pulling. It was like
yeah.
very unnecessary in my opinion, especially in a training room. But yeah, it cracked my rib.
And did you feel it right away?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But the problem with rib injuries like that, I think you need to have like two or three ribs broken in order for them to give you a brace. So it's more like
Yeah.
here's some painkillers. Now you just
Yeah.
gotta wait a couple weeks. So that's really
Right.
all I did for that one. And then I also had I popped a floating rib. So like
Okay.
where your rib kind of connects to cartilage and stuff, it just went out of alignment. And that one was not during a submission or anything. I think I just wasn't warmed up enough. And
Okay.
now I found that getting older, that's probably one of the most important things to do
Sure.
is yeah, I did warm ups, but I don't think I warmed up enough. So I just kind
Yeah.
of twisted a certain way wrong
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
felt my rib pop and I was like, oh, that wasn't good. And I couldn't even sit up.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
and then that one, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean,
Yep.
my sister's a DPT, doctor of physical therapy, and she looked at it and she kind of like positioned me in such a way and pulled and yanked that kind of helps to reposition it a little bit. But
Okay.
like permanently, I have this floating rib that sticks out a little bit on the left side.
We're matching. I've got one too. It happened to me. Same thing. I don't have a good story. Everybody was like, "Was it knee on belly?" I'm like, "No." This dude was about to pass my guard as I'm laying there, and as he was over here, and then as he's like about to pass my guard the other way, I just rotated, and then
Yeah,
I heard and felt the,
same.
and then same thing. It's So according to my doctor, he said he did an ultrasound and they did an X-ray. So the rib is actually in place. All the bump is cartilage. That's what he said. It's just
Yeah,
cartilage. Even though, yeah, I permanently have. I guess it's permanent now. I got the bump sticking out. It doesn't hurt anymore. But for a while there, it hurt every time I laughed, every time I coughed, every time I sneezed, every time I would reach a certain way, it would be like ah. So not fun. These rib injuries are weird, and there doesn't seem to be much of a way to prevent them other than maybe what you said, like doing a proper warm up.
yeah, and even then, you got to kind of ease your way into each roll, especially getting older. I mean, it was just an awkward position, like
Right.
that I did to myself, just turning, and I felt
Yeah.
the pop like you described.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, injuries, getting older and whatnot. But I can't believe we've already been going 43 minutes, and I don't want to end without talking about your competition that you've
Oh,
done. Which was when was it? What belt were you? How long ago? How'd it go? Yeah, I want to know. Tell us everything.
yeah, this was a while ago, and I wouldn't call myself a competitor. I've only done one competition.
Okay.
It was at the tail end of my white belt career, if you will.
Okay.
And I kind of decided, I was like, you know, I'll try it. If I want to try to compete, I want to do it maybe at least at white belt,
Okay.
because at some point you're never going to be a white belt again. So you'll never have that chance to go back and compete as a white belt.
I,
So
as a
I think it
white
might
belt,
be,
I never think to myself, man, I'm never going to be a white belt again. What a bummer. I'm always thinking the complete opposite thing, but that's a very optimistic way to think about being a white
yeah.
belt. So
Well,
anyway, keep
because
going.
I think it's even more intimidating if the first time you compete is as a blue belt or a purple belt.
That's
So
yeah. Okay.
if you
I
ever
can
want
see
to
that.
compete, that was kind of my mindset. It's like, okay, I'll try it, right?
Yeah.
And it was a huge commitment. I trained more. The wife maybe wasn't too happy during that time. I cut out alcohol, and I had to cut a little bit of weight And just like you, like we're pretty thin guys, so
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to lose 3 or 4 pounds.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
'Cause
can
I
imagine
think
it's harder for
for
you. So what? So you were trying to get into the what 155 to
no,
168?
no,
Is that
no.
what it is?
So yeah, the 168 was the limit, and I usually hover about 168, but 168 is with your gi on, and so gis
Oh,
are
oh. Okay.
roughly 3 pounds.
So you had to
So
cut a couple pounds there.
I had to cut, yeah, I had to cut close to 4 pounds just to be safe, just to be under it. Um,
And so
yeah,
that
so
was so you took this seriously. You were cutting weight, you had a strict diet, you were training. Like what was your training schedule like during that time? Like how many days a week were you training as you're leading up to the competition,
I want to say I
if you
was
remember?
going four to 5 times a
Okay.
week for like maybe a month and a half, 2 months.
Okay.
And then if I could, I'd squeeze in like a two a day. So I
Wow.
go, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was
Um,
busy. And you were sorry, I know you were a white belt, but what year was this?
this was, I don't,
2022, 23 sounds like maybe.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere around that time frame. Um, yeah, so no expectations, just wanted to give it a try.
Yeah.
Um, and then the competition that I did was Golden Sun Federation. It's a local jiu-jitsu tournament,
Okay.
typically held, I think, what was it, Baldwin Park. So they
Okay.
do it outdoors usually. They set up mats. I think it might be held by Logic.
Outdoors. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing. Okay.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I did that one. It was I think it was double elimination, and
Okay.
it's Masters 2, so that's 36 to 40 years old.
So
White belt.
how many matches did you have?
So I only had two matches,
Okay.
because there was only four competitors. So as
In
you
the
get up,
bracket. Okay.
yeah, when you get up in the age, there's
Yeah.
less competitors. Um,
I have heard. Okay.
yeah, so the first guy so in terms of process, the way that it typically works is before your match, you get called into the bullpen. It's a waiting area,
Okay.
and then typically you're only in there for a couple minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Then you get pulled
Okay.
up to your mat, and then you wait in line for your match to start. So usually there's a match going on, and then you go up there when it's your turn.
Okay.
Um, so I went up there to ask like what time my match was, and they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, yours isn't for a while. Come back in like it was like 45 minutes or an hour." So I was like, "Oh, I got plenty of time."
Okay.
And so I was like, "Okay, I'll start warming up when it gets closer." That was a big mistake because
Oh, really?
I want to
Why?
say 10, 15 minutes later, they called me up into the bullpen.
Oh my God. I
So I
had a
didn't have,
feeling that's where you were going with this.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason why warm up is incredibly important, and of course I'm no expert being that I had competed one time, but everybody says, you get that adrenaline dump and like you can't feel your fingers and you just like use all your energy all at once. And one way to combat that is to have a really good warm up. So
Okay.
you got a nice sweat going on.
What
So when
what
you go
what's a
out there,
really good warm up for a competition? What was your warm up? I guess you didn't get to do it, but what was your warm
I
up
didn't get to do
plan?
it. Well,
What was the plan though? What did you want to do?
I would have rolled with one of my friends for a couple minutes at least.
But just like
But
a flow roll, not like a full on roll, right? Or
it would be a
oh,
decent intensity roll because you want to
all
get
right.
sweating. You want to get
Sure,
the
sure,
adrenaline
sure.
dump basically out of the way.
Yeah. Okay. So I get it. And you did not get to do that at all. You didn't even get
No.
to start it. Ah. Okay. So they call
So
you up.
I
Oh my
got called up into the
God, dude, this is
bullpen,
great.
and then I was like, "This is really early. Is it my turn already?" They're like, "Yeah, just head to the mat."
Oh, like now,
So
go.
yeah, so now,
Wow.
so I didn't even have time to call my coach to come over, which he
Okay.
did come over later for my second match. And when I went over there, I was like, "Oh shoot, I need to warm up." So I
Yeah.
started doing just like push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks like on the side of the mat before I got on there. It was
Yeah.
literally, I wouldn't even call it a warm-up. It was like 30 seconds of that. And then they called me onto
30
the mat.
seconds of like high
It was
intensity jumping
terrible.
jacks and push ups.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then you jump on
Yeah.
the mat. Oh, and so how did it go on the mat?
So I was like not prepared and I was like, oh
Yeah.
man, I feel like dizzy. Am I gonna faint? Because this person's gonna try to kill me and my
Yeah.
job is to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and then we slap hands, bump fists, and then started, and he hit me with a blast double, and I put him straight into my guard. And then I pulled his arm across and took his back, and then
nice.
And then I had 2-on-1 from underneath his arm, grabbing his arm. And typically, usually like one arm's enough to control, but I was like, I've never felt somebody so strong my entire life because all that they have that same adrenaline dump, you have the same adrenaline dump. So I was like, I need two hands to hold it. And then he was struggling, and that was the only way I can kind of control that arm.
All right.
And then he kind of leaned forward, and then as he leaned forward, I kind of rotated over and did a belly down arm bar on that arm that I was holding, and then submitted him that way.
Oh, you won the match by submission. Holy crap. Yeah. So how long, like after how many minutes was the submission? It sounds like it was pretty quick.
I don't remember.
Mean, was
maybe it was maybe like 2 minutes.
Yeah. So it was like a 5-minute round. Like it would have ended at 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And you did. Well, I gotta say, Jeremy, it sounds like this no warm up thing worked out for you. The jumping jacks for 30 seconds is the way to go for you. No?
No way, man. It was so I was.
But it couldn't.
Wrecked.
I mean, you couldn't have hoped for a better result. No.
Yeah, I guess. But you have that's just the first round. You got to go again, right? So
sorry, I just muted my microphone. Yeah. So hold on though. What was your strategy? I mean, I'm sure you had a plan, right? At least somewhat. Okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, I'm going to do that. Now, what you did was that what you had kind of planned to do, or was it all went out the window when you got on the mat?
The first match, I would say everything went out the window. It was just like adrenaline, and my heart was pumping super fast. I didn't know what to expect. So, I mean, I just kind of relied on muscle memory, and fortunately it worked out.
Okay. Yeah. Heck yeah, it worked out. And okay. So how long? So that match wrapped up. You win, and that's awesome. Congratulations. Yep. And how long did you? After how many? Like, was it another hour till the next match, or was it?
It was only maybe another 15 minutes, maybe less, till my second match, because there's only 4 of us. It's double elimination, meaning the 2 people who lost their first match had to go against each other for 3rd place, and then I would go against the other guy who won his match for 1st or 2nd place.
Okay, and so that's the match you're about to tell us about. So, so tell us how the next match went.
So going into the second match, again, not a lot of time to really do anything, and I would say I still wasn't warmed up, and I had already dumped the adrenaline and had like no strength in my hands anymore.
Right.
And then same thing, so the same thing that started was I got hit with a blast double again. Because I just wasn't ready. Like I wasn't in ready stance. I was just like, oh my God, what is going on?
Okay.
But my coach was there the second time, and I definitely played more of my game that time. So once he took me down, he went, like I put him straight into my closed guard and started working on grips. So I kind of switched between cross collar sleeve to same side collar sleeve. And then I got a spider guard. Like I pushed on his arm with my foot, but not on the same side that I was trapping his sleeve.
Okay.
And then I shot a triangle, and I closed up the triangle.
But your specialty, those long legs.
I was out of gas. Like I had it locked up.
No.
I even scooped his leg, so I cut the angle, and everything should have just been done there.
Right.
But I had such little energy, I couldn't even squeeze this triangle.
Wow.
So I ended up holding him there for I don't know how long, a little bit, and then he ended up getting his feet underneath and pushing under my armpits to push me away. At which point, I got on top and I got to mount. So I got 4 points for mount after that. Then when they recentered us, I was the one. I don't know what the belt's called, but you get an extra belt if both of you are wearing the same colored gis, so they can tell who's who. So we were both wearing white gis.
Okay.
So I had the extra belt, and I think it was like, I don't know, it's like green and white or something. It's like a scarf. It's almost like a scarf.
Well, hold on. You say extra belt, like you wear that on top of your white belt, so you literally are wearing 2 belts, but he's wearing 1 belt.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of like isn't that giving him more grips than you have? Isn't there a little bit of a, I don't know.
I guess so, but I mean that's the way that most organizations do it when you're wearing the same color gi.
I see. And so what? And sorry, you said they recentered you or whatever. What? How come they had to do that? You were outside of the.
So we moved too far to the side of the mat,
Yeah.
and then so when I got recentered, the ref told me to retie my belt, that extra belt, because it had come off. And at that point, I knew I was in trouble because my hands couldn't even
We're so
tie
tired.
the belt. I couldn't even tie the belt around my
Oh
waist.
my God! Wow, that's tough, man.
So I got it done.
Yeah.
We continued the match.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got him back into my close guard. And then he tried to cross collar choke me from inside my guard, which is it's just a no-no. That's like armbar central.
Right.
But I was so out of gas. I couldn't even get myself to turn and kick my leg over his face.
Okay.
And I was already up in points. I forget the points, but I think the only points that he had was from the original takedown.
Okay.
So I looked over at the clock and I saw my coach.
Yeah.
And there was like 20 something seconds left. And I was like, I'm going to play it safe. And I'm just going to hold him in my closed guard until the time runs out.
Yeah.
Because I just had no more strength. And that's what I did. And so I won in points.
Now, is that something you're allowed to do? Like if you just, like, let's say it's the beginning of the match and you have somebody in your closed guard and you just hold them there tight and you don't, do you have to actively try to be doing something in these tournaments, or do you know what I mean? Or can you just lay inside control or guard?
It depends on the rule set. You can get penalized for stalling. But I think because I don't remember if they had stalling. They had takeaway points for stalling at this tournament, but it was at the end of the match, I think, because there's only a few seconds left.
Right.
There wasn't
So
there
it was
wasn't much
totally
else going
fine
on
there. So what did you won by points? What was the total? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think it was close to 20 points. I had close to 20 points, and then I think he had the takedown points only. So
you won. So you got gold.
Yeah,
I mean, you got That's well, I mean, congratulations, dude. That's freaking awesome. You know, I gotta say, Jeremy, when you said you've only done one competition, and then when you started this story by like, I couldn't warm up properly, blah blah blah. I didn't expect this story to end with you won both of your matches, like definitively. So I'm surprised that didn't motivate you to keep competing, or is there a chance you're gonna go again?
Well, so never say never.
Right.
I don't have plans right now because I don't know. It's just it's a huge commitment, and I totally understand why people do it and the whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I think I heard you mention in one of your other episodes also the concern about injuries. Like there's a difference to me between being injured and being hurt. And training regularly, I feel like we're hurt all the time. And when you increase the intensity and increase the volume, especially at our age, I feel like the chances of injury does go up. So it's just not something that I'm actively looking to do, but who knows?
Right. Sure. We're getting short on time, and I had a couple more questions real quick just to make sure we get to them. But
sure.
That was a great story about your competition. So first of all, I can't help it. Jimmy's last name is not Steez, is it? Where the heck does this word come from?
Steez is it's a slang for style, like your own style.
Yeah, it is. I didn't know that. I guess it's something these kids are saying these days, or
like
something.
Know your Steez. No, it's probably from like the 90s.
Oh, more our generation.
Like
then.
like 90s hip hop. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've even back then when I knew about the gym when it was older, from day one I'm like, what is this freaking word, Steez? Okay, all right, finally I got it.
Style,
cool.
Individuality.
Okay, nice. Okay, that makes sense. That's a good name for a jiu-jitsu club. And also the last question I ask all my guests is, a lot of our listeners, a lot of our fans, they write into the show and they leave comments and they say things like, I'm considering starting jiu-jitsu. I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 20s even, and I just haven't taken the leap yet. So to those fans that are listening right now, what would you have to say to them?
Just give it a go. Just try it. I mean, it's a ton of fun. One of my favorite things about jiu-jitsu is just what a random, eclectic group of people you'll meet and become friends with. You may like it, you may not, but I would definitely give it a chance if you're even thinking about it. And then especially now being in my 40s, I'm like, oh, well, we're not getting younger, so the longer you wait to start, the more painful it's going to be. But yeah, give it a
That's
try.
a good point right there. Better,
Yeah.
the sooner the better, right? Age-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually never got to ask you as well what, this is normally what I ask in the beginning, but what, like for you, what, had you been interested in jiu-jitsu for a long time before you started? Or was it something you were just, one day you decided, oh, I've heard, oh, what's this jiu-jitsu thing? Let me try tomorrow. Like what's your story there?
I don't know the moment that actually piqued my interest in jiu-jitsu, but I will say I had a coworker. I still have a coworker. I still have a coworker, but he had been training and he'd been kind of egging me on to give it a try.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no, because I had all these other hobbies at the time. You know, I used to ride motorcycles. I used to rock climb, and then mountain biking and all this stuff. And I was just like, I don't have time for another hobby.
Right.
So eventually, you know, I had a family, don't ride motorcycles really anymore, and very limited mountain biking, and I don't rock climb anymore. So as those hobbies kind of fell out, I was like, maybe I can kind of squeeze in another hobby, and it was either this or surfing. And I was like, I think I'm gonna give jiu-jitsu a try. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of how it started.
You know, it's similar to my story as well, because I've been interested for a long time, but there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many hobbies you can have. I used to travel a lot. You can't really train jiu-jitsu and bounce around from place to place. I surfed for many years. I played a lot of ultimate frisbee, but yeah, I was kind of getting to the point as well where it's like I need a new hobby, and I've been interested for a while, and so glad I finally jumped in, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, we've reached an hour, and I appreciate your time, man. It's been an absolute pleasure, dude. This has been a blast. And I hope maybe we can do it again sometime in the future. But yeah, thanks again, man. Don't leave when we hang up here. We'll still be able to talk to each other. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure, man. And thanks again for coming on the podcast, on the Rolling Over 40 podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.